WrestleTalk!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's back. And it's got all the nostalgic things that you remember. It's got all of those warm, fuzzy feelings that take you back to that specific time, back in the day. It's got all the things you remember and some new things along the way. Gladiators is back!
I was wondering where you were going.
And the first episode aired on BBC over the weekend.
Yes, it did.
I watched it on my lunch break today and had a jolly good time with it.
Child Dan was fizzing with excitement over the weekend. I was at Comic-Con and I got home and I had a Wingstop and watched the Gladiators episode in bed at the hotel. It was thrilling. And then the next morning I watched the other big return of the week, which was this show that we're here to talk about.
Do you know what my favourite thing about watching Gladiators was? The contestants that were in their 20s talking about watching Gladiators when they were kids.
Lying.
Were not watching the Gladiators that I was watching when I was a kid.
No.
They were watching my Gladiators. They were watching the other Gladiators that came out in the mid-2000s on Sky.
Former TNA World Champion Nic Aldis.
Nic Aldis was part of that one.
Yeah.
But also TNA came back. Welcome to the WrestleTalk podcast review. Here is our review of TNA Hard To Kill 2024. I'm Luco in DAD. I'm joined by your Jam That Champion, the Professor, the Truth, Dan Layton. Please do press the subscribe button if this is your first time here and you haven't already. We're like about 1,500 away.
We keep edging.
Edging in closer and closer and closer to hitting our 85,000 target. Once we do, we're going to be doing a 10-hour live stream where we're going to watch a bunch of pay-per-views together, and it's going to be a grand old time. So do subscribe and help us reach that goal. Give us a little thumbs up. Sorry, Dan.
Just going to say that we're in a really good period of time to subscribe because we're on the road to WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah.
The wrestling industry is thriving. There's loads going on.
So much is going on.
Many reasons to subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe as well.
So yeah, get your comments in down below with what you thought of this episode of TNA, or tell us what you thought of Collision as well if you fancy that. Join us in the live chat if you are watching live and get your thoughts with other cool cats and kittens. And if you want them read out on the air, WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them above the $5 amount. As requested last week, we're going to review TNA Hard To Kill.
Yeah, it was. It's been an interesting period of time at the beginning of the year. It's like new year, new industry, finding feet in places. Dynamite has been really good. They've been doing a good job of reminding us why, we're there for that. WWE has already started on its push to the main events of the Royal Rumble and all that stuff, which leads you to the road to WrestleMania. And then, TNA coming back as TNA, which was announced obviously last year, got a little bit of interest among the fan base, didn't it?
Yeah, what we decided was, as we said on last week's show, that we would consider doing Hard To Kill if there was more interest coming out of that than there was Collision. Now, I would say that there probably was more talk of Collision, but there was way more exciting things, I guess, on Hard To Kill. Collision was it was a good episode of the show. We kind of would have sat here and been like, hey, great main events.
Yeah.
Deonna Purrazzo looked good in her debut in AEW as a member of the active roster. And you'd have had some, various things to say. But, TNA was a show that it had a point to prove.
Mm-hmm.
They kept putting over, this is the relaunch of TNA. This is the beginning of a new era of TNA. Into the same weekend as well, you had Jungle Boy show up in New Japan Pro Wrestling, tearing up his AEW contract. You've got
Castaway Jack Perry is what I think he looks like.
Well, yeah, scapegoat Jack Perry.
I love that.
You got Kazuchika Okada, who is filing trademarks for Rainmaker in the US because likelihood is, or at least the strong possibility is, he is WWE bound. You've got Mustafa Ali was announced for New Japan.
Yeah.
John Moxley's going to be taking on Tetsuya Naito at Windy City Riot. There's loads of stuff going on in the industry at the moment, which is genuinely very exciting.
Yeah.
Great way to start the new year. And we kick things off here with TNA, which not only had the debut of Ash by Elegance, the former Dana Brooke in WWE. You also had the Grizzled Young Vets, formerly of WWE on this show as well. And you had the debut of Nic Nemeth, the former Dolph Ziggler in WWE, who is now a part of he's certainly working with the TNA roster. He was at the TV tapings.
He ripped his shirt off to show a TNA shirt underneath. If that doesn't say that I have signed to this company, I don't know what is.
But he's also working with New Japan because he's doing some stuff over there. So we've got Dolph Ziggler, Nic Nemeth doing stuff with New Japan. Matt Riddle's doing some stuff with New Japan, which is like, it's the really exciting thing. Previously, if you got, if their 30 names got released by WWE, you expect to see like 15 of them in AEW. What we've actually seen is none of them in AEW thus far.
Yeah.
But we've seen them cropping up in TNA. AJ Francis, the former Top Dollar, was on the pre-show of this, getting into a feud with Joe Hendry. Now, that one is he's not signed, he's just doing some work with them. But I think like Ash by Elegance, the former Dana Brooke, is likely going to be doing some work with them. Zaya Brookside, formerly of NXT UK, also signed with TNA over the weekend. Just like loads going on.
And not only that, obviously they're doing their Round the World Sisters of the Traveling Pants storyline. Is Mercedes and Bailey were both at the show to support Trinity and Jordynne in the title match. Rumors and a very, very, very grainy picture that suggested Triple H was also at the show. Did you see this picture?
I haven't seen this.
Yeah,
picture,
so
no.
there was a thing going around. I had to. I don't think you remember when Triple H threw Shawn Michaels through the car and it was like grainy security footage, and then they like use super technology to clear it all up. I don't think even that technology will be able to help us see exactly who these figures are, but there were pictures that suggested, and the suggestion was that this incredibly grainy picture was Triple H present at AAA having a few chats. At TNA having a few chats. Whether or not that's true, you also have the AAA partnership going on here with TNA. And AEW's like 5th year. It's a very interesting time period, and I think this show almost exists as like a little time capsule moment. When you look back and you're like, oh, those things that happened in this year or in the past 10 years or whatever. This one's a really interesting one.
You got to kind of hope that TNA could potentially ride this wave of momentum, throughout the rest of 2024, because this was a really good show.
Yeah.
Bit of rocky at the start, I would say. I felt like it really picked up after the Triple Threat X Division match. Yeah. And I think from there on, I thought it was like a terrific show. The two main events, the main event and the co-main events, were fantastic. I thought the 4-way tag match was awesome.
I enjoyed all of it. Like, there was no point where I was like, skip, not bothered. And I think what was really fun about it was that it started off, I thought it had a really good match to start. We'll go through them individually, but really good match to start, some fun, and then the show. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, it was the whole, it was a nice arc for your drama curve for your show.
And, spoilers, not really spoilers because I'm not giving away results or anything like that, but TNA then did their TV tapings the day after, and Okada was part of those TV tapings, teaming with the Motor City Machine Guns. Will Ospreay was part of those tapings as well. So, kind of like, these are some big names within, like, if you're part of that hardcore wrestling fandom scene, like, these are the names you can be like, oh, actually, I'm going to check out TNA and see what TNA is all about. And I'm really hoping that a lot of people do check out this show. And off the back of that, check out more things that TNA are doing, because they've basically been consistently really good for the past couple of years. Like, even during the pandemic and stuff. The problem is that Impact had become a bit of a poison name. TNA was a poison name after the disastrous like Hogan and Bischoff run, which completely killed and gutted the company. And then they just lost everyone. They lost like all of the guys and girls that the company was built on, and have basically spent then the last 8 or so years rebuilding. And it brings us to this point here where they've relaunched as TNA. This is the new chapter in a new era of the company, and I hope that people can stick around.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, because the last year was a funny one. You had WWE on a form of resurgence, and you had AEW having a bit of an annus horribilis, like, in certain places, and as a result, there's a sort of energy around certain things that made it difficult for me to enjoy certain parts of certain shows. Whereas here, there's something in that kind of upstart spirit. Do you know what I mean? That kind of like counterculture rebellion with a third ones that didn't feel like we're taking shots at the big guys. But it did feel like, hey, we have some good stuff here. Do you know what I mean? If you're looking for a thing to enjoy, we are a good show.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this earlier. You sort of mentioned them as the third, but which is US, certainly not worldwide, because that'd be New Japan. But even then, like, it's a distant third, and I think there'd even be conversations that they're not even third. Like, there's like GCW are probably pulling in more people for,
I suppose
some
MLW
shows, and MLW are pulling in, this and the other, and like before their big collapse, NWA were doing okay in certain areas. So like it's not quite, they're not the number 2 certainly, and if they are 3, even then it's a distant third. Like it was just over 1,000 tickets sold, I think, for this event.
The biggest gate in like 3 years or something. Yeah.
Which, even it sounds like a lot of people for a pay-per-view, but even then it's sort of like, it's a 5th of what AEW are doing. It's a 10th of what WWE are doing. So it really does, like, they're sort of low down on the scale. And it's funny, you just go like, they feel like the upstart company that have been going for 20 years.
Yeah, I know. It's that story though of the narrative of like, lost our way, numerous things went down, but now this is our opportunity to be reborn in that way and come back. And
I hope so. I'm going to be very curious to see what sort of numbers this video does. I like to use our audience as a bit of like a litmus test of sort of like, people's feelings towards wrestling as a whole. I'm not saying that we're like the epicenter of wrestling takes or anything like that, or our audience is the epicenter of what wrestling fans are talking about. But when we did the NXT Deadline episode a few weeks back in December, when we didn't do Collision, the numbers that did were basically on the lower side of your average episode we do on Collision. So when we do an episode of Collision where there's no real big story beat, there's no real big matches, that does X amount of viewers on the WrestleTalk podcast. That episode of NXT Deadline did about that sort of viewers. It's nowhere near sort of like what a good episode of Collision would do for us. So I'm curious as where TNA is going to fall in this. Like, is TNA going to be around that sort of NXT? I think it'll probably be lower than that NXT number and certainly lower than that Collision number. But like, that's, I think it's a good barometer to be like, that is kind of the level of interest that our audience has in terms of, maybe I'd like to do more TNA reviews, because I like to do as many. We've always wanted to do more reviews of more things. Yeah. But we go by what the audience tells us. The audience don't.
Supply and demand.
If the audience tell us, I'm not asked about you reviewing TNA. If half of the audience are like, I'm not bothered, then I'm like, oh, well, okay, we'll review Collision. Then I'll say it was a good show, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, it's one of those things though as well where it's like, when you try something out and with no like advance notice, whereas this one was like, oh, we might talk about this kind of thing. It's interesting to see. And also TNA is very British heavy, like Brit fans and TNA go way back kind of thing. So, and there was talk of that in the show as well. So I'm kind of intrigued by what people have to say. Like I hope you do send in your Ultrachats, and I hope that we chat about it in the live chat as well, because I think it's an interesting, like I keep saying, an interesting moment in time for TNA. And for me, as someone who, I was never a massive TNA fan. I, however, was watching. Like, I would always check it out, even back in the Wrestling Channel days where it was the weekly pay-per-views that we just got free kind of thing, with the four-sided the ring and the TNA and Impact font on the, ironic, on the turnbuckles with the Raven as world champ and all that stuff. So I've got a fondness for it. I came out of this show feeling like, yeah, good for you. Like, I felt really positive about it, and it was nice. Yeah. And as a fan who's had ups and downs over the past year, it was really nice to just feel like, yeah, I like that.
If I could just be Tempest for a second, I'll just push my glass up my nose just to correct you somewhat, and just fact check somewhat. Raven was champion during the monthly pay-per-view era. It wasn't a weekly. He was going for the world title then, but he didn't win the world title until they were in the monthly pay-per-view era.
I was still very young at the time, so my brain wasn't fully formed. Don't forget I'm younger than you.
Yeah, I was at university, being a big old Raven mark. Excited that he won the NWA World Championship at Slammiversary. In the period of time when they didn't have a TV deal, so everything was just on their website, so I got to watch it on a weekly basis on their website. And then they got a TV deal and put the title straight back onto Jeff Jarrett, because that was part of the TV deal.
Yeah,
that was arranged by Jeff Jarrett. But one of the big things going into this was that TNA had hyped that they had a big signing. Like, they had a really big announcement to be made on this show. I don't know if Nic Nemeth is that like groundbreaking signing. I don't think this is comparable to Will Ospreay signing with AEW. But it is like, it's a big deal for them, and I'm really glad to see Nic Nemeth there, because I think he's the one who will shine within TNA. But it was genuinely really, really cool to see Nic Nemeth at the end of this show.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's not on the level of an Ospreay. But what I do like about it is that it kind of, as you said before, 30 people get released from WWE, 15 of them show up in AEW. And there was something for me about it that made it feel like, oh no, that's a more interesting choice for you, Nic Nemeth. Like, I could see you showing up in AEW, and I could see you putting on some good matches and having a nice time, and I'm sure they'd put a mic in your hand and have you cut a promo about having creative freedom, and now there's no ceiling and all that stuff, and I'm finally working a boss who listens to me, all that stuff. But this is, I see a vision for him in AEW where he sort of shows up now and again on Collision or Rampage.
Yeah, the joke that I think I made on 3 Count was that him and Ryan Nemeth will just be doing tags on Rampage.
Yeah,
like within 2 months they would just become like the Seidel brothers and just doing tag matches on Rampage.
Whereas this, and I don't mean that as a disrespect to AEW, they just have a massively oversaturated roster and a lot more sort of more relevant is too cruel a word, talent to use.
I think it is. I'm hoping to say it is a sign of growth within Tony Khan that he hasn't just snapped up.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a period of Tony Khan that would have signed up someone like a Mustafa Ali, a Nic Nemeth, a Top Dollar, and like actually just like brought in a load of these people that got released. A Grizzled Young Vets being another one. But like I'm hoping this is a sign of growth that he's like, do you know what? I actually don't need them currently because I've got this incredible roster already that's full of lots of top guys that I'm trying to create here.
I kind of like the creativity of someone like Ali to show up at AEW. I think they could really use that injection of his. He's got something. He's so enigmatic. There's something about Mustafa Ali.
He's so good.
It's a colossal loss. I mean, no wonder NXT were pissed, kind of thing. But I almost feel like for Nic Nemeth, if he's got, he might well have had. I don't know this. He might well have had an offer from AEW for something and looked over here and gone, well, I could maybe be a big fish in a small pond and make a splash and use my people care about me, people like me. I have a lot of goodwill. I can raise the profile of TNA and still get to do all the other things that I want to do and have some fun along the way. Yeah. And I think it's a far more interesting choice when I look at, not dissimilar to Trinity, who we'll talk about later, who, for where Nic Nemeth is in his career, to go to this upstart 20-year-old promotion and make a big splash. I thought it was a really cool moment. And he looked like he was having fun.
Yeah, he was really into it, and it capped off what was an awesome main event as well. We'll talk about that now. It was Moose versus Alex Shelley for the TNA World Championship. I love the TNA World Championship design.
Oh, do you?
I really like the belt design.
I love the old one, so I was waiting for this to be on that level, and I don't think it is.
I
think it's good.
The red on the red of the logo is perhaps a little bit like naff, I guess. Like yes. it doesn't look as prestigious as the old TNA World Championship, the one that Samoa Joe and
the one that Moose brought back.
Yes, but I still think it's a very, very cool belt. And this was an awesome match. I'm not the biggest Moose guy. Like, I think Moose is very, very good, but like I've never been like oh man, gotta check out that latest Moose match. But I am an Alex Shelley guy. Alex Shelley is one of my guys. Like, he was one of the first wrestlers when I got back into wrestling that I truly like fell in love with. When I was watching TNA, it was him and Chris Sabin and Petey Williams and AJ Styles and Daniels and Joe and this like X Division crew that they had, Sonjay Dutt, Jay Lethal, when they were all coming in as well. And the Motor City Machine Guns of Shelley and Sabin became like my favorite tag team.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see them all the time. And so it's been great to see Shelley stick around with TNA. He's gone away, he's come back, and he's their top guy, and he's their world champion. And that's absolutely awesome, particularly because Sabin's the X Division champion as well, and they're still doing their Motor City shtick. I thought Shelley and Moose worked together so brilliantly in this match. This is actually one of the few matches you and I haven't had a chance to talk about yet, because you were halfway through the show when we went out for lunch. But I thought this was a great main event.
Yeah, I did too. I think it was nice to have two sort of TNA mainstays be your, main event thing. You know, here Alex Shelley, as you say, with this rich history, and then also Moose, who has like when he in the pandemic era and he brought back that TNA championship when it was still Impact, and TNA was something that we hadn't. So for some reason, I always associate him in that regard, kind of thing. So it was a nice mix of power versus speed with the legacy of the company, and yet it still felt sort of new and interesting, and they built it really well with the promo package at the beginning. And then I just thought it was great. I thought it was a lot of fun.
A funny bit of commentary as well, because they were talking about Shelley's the third longest reigning TNA champion in a single run. Do you want to have a guess at who the other two are?
Longest reigning? Jeff Jarrett.
No, within a single run, so not combined.
AJ Styles?
Nope.
Okay, are we talking early days or newer days?
It's mid days. One of them is mid days, and the other one is the newer days.
Eric Young?
No.
Okay, pass.
So Bobby Roode is the person in second with 256 days, which he had in his 2011 run. Shelley had it for 218 days. And Josh Alexander, who was earlier on the show, held it for 335 days in 2022. But they were talking about the defenses that he's had against people like Steve Macklin, against Nick Aldis, against Hiroshi Tanahashi. And there's a ... and Brian Myers. And I'm like, one of these things is not like the other. But Shelley was the smaller guy in this match. Like Moose is that blend of speed and strength. So like Matt Rainwald was saying, like, Shelley's got to be the better wrestler here. Like that is his best tactic in order to get the win. And because he was trying to survive almost towards the end of this, he had a moment where he was trying to take count out victories, not in a heelish way, just more a case of this might be the only way I can win. It's smart wrestling. There
was a moment where he just stopped for a water break because he was so knackered.
There was a great moment towards the end of the match when he was doing 3 chops. They were doing the yay boo exchange and stuff, and he was doing 3, and then Moose would just nail him down with 1, get back up, and he would try and strike him with 3. And it was for every 3 that he had, Moose just took him down with 1.
Yeah.
And he would fire up with these rolling elbow things, and then Moose would just headbutt him and just send him back down. And finally, Shelley clambered back with his clothesline. I thought this was really, really wicked. He dropped him down on the ramp with an arm breaker, going after that left arm the entire time.
It kind of had this energy of a fighting champion, not in the traditional way of I'm going to defend this belt, but in you're a massive human being who has the capacity to break me in half. I've got to fight my behind off to make this come true.
And it didn't put Shelley down either in terms of his standing as the world champion, because he did hit his shell shock on the outside, and that wiped Moose out. That's what he was going for the count out win for. So key to that is he never hit the shell shock in the ring. Instead, Moose avoided it on 2 occasions and hit the spear for the win.
This was a very good night for finishes, to be honest.
Protecting your finish.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's always about protecting that finish. There was some slight distraction stuff in there because The System, which is the new faction. They've been a faction for a while, but now they've got this name, The System, which is Eddie Edwards and Alicia Edwards and Brian Myers and Moose. And Sabin and Kushida came out to a brawl with them. Shelley's 2 tag partners, the Motor City Machine Guns and the Time Splitters. I really enjoyed a lot of this. But then Moose, avoided 2 shell shocks, hit the spear and got the win. A new era of TNA, a new world champions makes sense. Want to get your new group over as much as possible. If this was a true TNA relaunch, they'd have broken the group up and on the day that you formed them. That's the way you do a TNA faction. You'd have just had dissension within the ranks immediately. But no, this is a faction that are getting on, which doesn't feel like TNA at all.
Not my TNA.
It's not my TNA. Yeah. Let's break these up on Impact. That's what you want to be doing. Immediately break this group up. And then afterwards, The System came out to celebrate with Moose, but the screen came up and Nic Nemeth's name appeared. They were looking to the entrance ramp for him to make, to get him as he was coming out, but instead he came through the crowd. He had a stare off with Moose, hit the super kick and a zigzag, which they didn't call a zigzag.
Yeah, can I pitch you my new name for it?
I did hear it, but please do tell the fine folk.
Zigzag is trademark, they can't use that. He's Nic Nemeth now, so I think this move should be called the Knick Knack. Thank you. Hey, Ollie Davis likes it.
Ollie Davis likes a lot of things.
That coming from you. We'll get to that on this show.
And then he runs away from The System, gets into the crowd, and he tears his Motley Crue shirt that he was wearing, or his bandage. I think it was a Motley Crue.
It was Motley Crue.
And he had a TNA vest on underneath.
Yeah.
And he was there in the crowd going, yeah! And I was like, good for you. TNA. I was well in for it.
Far more impactful than ripping off your Raw shirt and showing a SmackDown. Do you know what I mean? It had that because it had that energy of standing in the crowd.
It's Big Show. doing the ECW t-shirt.
That's it. There was something I really liked it. I thought it was a great little visual to go off the air with. And by the way, I love that venue. I think, I'm a big Vegas boy, and I liked the fact that it was looking all ballroomy. I liked where the commentary were. I thought they made it look great. We've talked a lot on Collision, especially about how you frame a crowd to make them look packed out when that arena is not packed out. And I thought they did a really good job with all the production of it. So having him go into the crowd with the fans being really excited, it was just a really good little moment to end the show on.
Gives it that kind of ECW vibe a little bit, with the rabid crowd and stuff, or there's really hot Ring of Honor shows that you kind of had in the mid to late 2000s, even in the early 2010s and stuff, when you had Steen and Generico.
Yeah.
Can we do a quick poll? Nic Nemeth, love it, hate it?
I think it's the one.
We'll just do it as a binary option.
I don't know do Americans say knickknacks? Like, if in case they don't, it's just little trinkets and bits and bobs that you have lying around the house. Bric-a-brac.
Or crisps.
Or crisps. There are crisps called knickknacks. Yeah, that's right.
They aren't as nice as you remember them being.
Oh, I'd never liked them to begin with. But this is with C's. The Nick, because Nick is,
I know his name.
With a C, but not a K. So I don't want to have, we've got to be grammatically correct. This isn't 3 count. Knickknacks,
please. Love it or hate it from our moderators. We'll do it as a binary option. But I think this is cool. I think this is good for TNA.
Yeah.
I think it's cool for Nemeth, and I'm excited. Like, I genuinely feel like I wanted to go on the internet this morning and kind of look at not just the reaction to Nemeth coming in, but also just, the tapings that they did and kind of see what's coming up. And they've got a program for Nemeth already. And as I mentioned, you've got Okada on the tapings and Will Ospreay on the tapings. There's a good lot of buzz around TNA at the moment. I just hope that they can ride that momentum.
Yeah, and that's why I think Nemeth is a good choice for them, because it's someone who allows them to plot him straight into the main event. You might want to see it, and then you can do something with that draws your eyes, and that's how you keep building the momentum. I've just clocked that you've seen the picture of what may or may not be Triple H.
Absolute nonsense.
I know. Like, this isn't my post.
That could be literally anyone.
This is the picture. I'll try and show it to the camera.
Well,
I can figure it out.
That's one I can put it on the screen. I can put it on screen. Yeah, if you can fill the time, and I'll show everyone how ludicrous this is.
I'll finish my point about Nemeth, and then I'll point out why this is not my choice. So basically, Nemeth, the idea of him being this guy who can come along the way, and as they're trying to go into this new era, he'll bring eyes over to the promotion. He's already a main eventer. He's a former world champion, so it makes sense that he'd be there. You're not having to both get eyes on your product and find a connection with your audience and legitimize the world title. You can do all of it at once, kind of thing, with someone who's already established. That's really cool. Now, the picture that Luke is currently uploading that we're all going to show is an incredible, as I said right at the beginning, an incredibly grainy image of 3 men standing around. Someone on Twitter, in fact, several people on Twitter, have suggested this is Triple H talking to some people.
State of this. Absolutely.
There are
circle over this image.
There are at most 4 pixels in this image. This image is in negative 7020p or whatever. Like, it is not a thing. But there people have run wild with the idea that is Triple H.
It's like Slender Man.
And hey, it could be. It could also be Eric Young. Like, because when he started the show, he looked not unlike Triple H. So, like, anyway. Bit of stuff and nonsense.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be fun? I mean, in fairness, I wonder if that's been sparked by, there was stories like earlier in the year when Triple H was going to make a major announcement. That was just Money in the Bank's going to be in Toronto this year. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
That was a bit Tony Khan.
Yeah.
My theory on that is, that was the joke. It was supposed to be a rib on Tony Khan, but no one picked up that there was a joke.
Yeah, I thought so.
Like, no, guys, it was a joke. No, don't make fun of me. Make fun of him. But people thought he might announce it as a TNA partnership. But that has yet to happen. I don't know.
Patrick the Heel has posted it, and it's a Triple H, Mercedes, and CM Punk at Hard to Kill. I hadn't even heard about CM Punk. Either way. But that's just, I like that. That was fun.
We have Kid Cuddy here kicking things off in the Ultrachats. Please do press the buttons down there to send in an Ultrachat, $5 or above, and we'll read out all of them. And obviously vote in our poll as well. Do you love the name Nic Nack or hate the name Nic Nack as Nic Nemeth's new finish? Kid Cuddy here says, to be honest, if AEW's idea of restoring the feeling is a heavier ROH presence like this week's episode of Collision, then give me all the TNA reviews on Mondays. Still waiting for that NXT pod, though. You're going to be waiting a long time for that one. This is a great pay-per-view, and I'm happy for Ziggler. TNA is back. Yeah, I don't think we'll be doing weekly NXT reviews.
Mm.
I don't think we're doing weekly TNA reviews either, but on special occasions.
Hey, build the audience for TNA and we'll see.
That's it. If you want to, we need people to watch these shows, and then I can actually present to the people who make the ultimate decision to be like, look, people want us to do this.
I'll make my underground. I'll rip my shirt off and reveal underneath it something that says NXT Vengeance Day review.
Honestly, when I first came into WrestleTalk back in 2017, I kept saying like, why don't we do weekly NXT reviews? And I was like, because no one watches the show. And his point was proven, because every time we've done NXT reviews, they've drawn the worst ratings we've ever had on these channels.
It's interesting because I do think, and I don't think this is something that you disagree with. I think the product is good. I think I enjoy the show, and we enjoyed when we did Deadline.
Great pay-per-view.
Yeah, so like it's not a case of we don't think the product is worth it or we don't even watch it. It's a case of, whatever. So, but we'll have a talk about that after.
The numbers don't lie, and they often spell disaster for TNA and NXT. Mayor of Painsfield Dan says, "Hello, Luke. Hello, other Dan. Hope you're doing well. TNA. I loved this show. The true alternative is back. Brian Myers making the pin to win his match. Brian Myers on stage with the camera every hour or so. Who can't you love in this TNA? It's awesome."
Yeah.
That is Brian Myers' #1 fan, Dan, there. That's why
Brian Myers or Goldust. I don't know which one.
I think Goldust is, going by the rankings that he gives when he submits for his Wrestler of the Year, Goldust always gets 5 points. And Brian Myers, I think, gets 4. Like, no matter how often Will Ospreay is Will Ospreay, Dan will always vote for Goldust at 5 points.
Well, there you go.
And Blake here says, so glad you did what I asked this week and reviewed this show. I've always had a soft spot for TNA. I've been to WWE and AEW shows, but the most fun I've had at a wrestling show was at a TNA one last year. They're the little engine that could, and I loved them.
That's exactly the phrase I would put on them, the little engine that could. I think when they did their UK tour back in October and November, they had... stuff with Cultaholic, and they went all places, the Northeast, and they went to the Midlands and all that stuff. There was something really nice about, it's like Sarah Miller got to debut. My mate Liam, H-Trainer Liam of this parish, was on the stream at one point because he was in the audience. It's just a lot of fun. I think I really like the spirit of this. It's almost like, if I think back to that kind of mid-noughties era of the wrestling channel and whatever, you had WWE, TNA was the secondary, and then there was ROH. And I feel like TNA are now operate in that ROH position, if that's not too controversial a take to have.
It's only a dark enough building to make it look like it was Ring of Honor in the mid-2000s.
But I kind of like that for them. And that tier of North American wrestling is so important, I think, to have for the economy of wrestling and wrestlers to have places to go.
I'm just going to read this one out from Ten Ruzza as well. He said, couple of things. Luke, stop putting the idea that Okada is going to WWE. Tanahashi, being the new president of New Japan, has made him signing with them an even more... Tanahashi, being the new Japan president, has made him signing with them again a more likely thing in terms of re-signing with New Japan. And Joel Pearl said that it wasn't Triple H that was at the show, it was a production member. There you go. It was Joel Pearl who was there at the building.
There you go.
It was not Triple H. It was just a production guy. Sorry, are you trying to tell me?
Well, look.
You're trying to tell me that's not Triple H?
Put it back on the screen.
Are you trying to tell me that's not Triple H?
Can you say to me with 100% confidence that is not Triple H?
Yes, I can. Do you know why I can say with 100% confidence that's not Triple H? Because I can't see who it is.
Well, if you can't see who it is, you can't say anything with 100% confidence.
I can't say it's anyone. It could be Obadiah Stane, who isn't real.
Who should we start a rumor was at TNA and that's the picture?
Obadiah Stane.
Yeah, well, no. I mean,
okay, Jeff Bridges then. Jeff Bridges was there at the TNA show.
I'm thinking more.
Tony Stark built this company with a bunch of scraps in a cave.
I could pick anyone and have you, and I'm gonna over the course of the show. Letitia Dean, former star of EastEnders, was at TNA, and there's my evidence.
Also, I'm not the one who's putting out the Okada thing. That's the reports at the moment. He's the one he's filed new trademarks.
You are going hard now, and I love it for you.
Look, I'm just saying, I just go by what the reports are saying. The reports are him signing with WWE is more likely than it was this time last year.
Yeah.
And that's because one of the reasons is he's very good friends with Shinsuke Nakamura, and at his age, going to WWE is much lighter on his body than sticking with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Surfing together and phone it in.
They can go surfing and just do their 3-star matches.
And it'll be The Miz.
And it'll be grand.
We'd love to see it.
Yeah. Do you want to see Okada versus Miz?
I do.
Yeah, Okada versus R-Truth.
Oh, wow. I mean, let's get started.
Yeah, let's get
Okada and Nakamura versus the Awesome Truth.
Oh, now we're talking.
Write it down. There's your post-Mania angle.
So yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think you're right, Tanahashi being the president could mean he re-signs, but hey, everyone thought that Nakamura might stick around as well, and then he did sign with WWE. So we'll see. Anyway, let's get into the rest of this show. Please do keep getting in your Ultrachats, WrestleTalk.com/support. I liked that Eric Young did the VO for the opening video package of this show. You know, one of those originals from TNA back in the day. Doing the voiceover here was quite touching.
And then cutting like an absolutely bombastic promo to sort of make a big statement about what this show is and where we're going. And this is a confirmation that Triple H was at the event, because this was Triple H NXT. We are NXT. Are you ready?
This whole thing of like, yeah, a lot of people have said that we wouldn't be here. A lot of people have come in and tried to kill this company. Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff. But we're still here. You've not been able to squash this cockroach. Everyone always used to make the joke is that at the end of the nuclear war, like the last things remaining will be cockroaches and TNA Pro Wrestling. But I thought it was nice for Eric Young. Also, by the way, if you're in the mood for clicking links like our Ultra Chats, get tickets for our Royal Rumble watch party. The only reason I mention that now is because there aren't that many left.
Oh, they're not?
There's only about 10 tickets left.
Spicy.
So Survival Series, our live Survival Series has sold out. So there's only about 10 tickets left for the actual watch party itself. So if you are on the fence about going, I'd probably look to get your tickets sooner rather than later, because it's probably going to sell out in the next day or so.
Lovely.
So I would get in there soon. We opened things up with an Ultimate X match, the winner of which would become the #1 contender to the Knockouts Championship. It was Tasha Steelz versus Giselle Shaw versus Alicia Edwards versus Jody Threat versus Danny Luna, also signing with the company late last year, and Zaya Brookside, who signed with the company over the weekend.
Just a quick correction on pronunciation. It's Alicia Edwards, and the reason I need to correct you on that pronunciation is because there is a drag star called Alyssa Edwards, and so every single time Tom said, so like Jody Threat climbing up with Alicia Edwards on her back, I instantly got an image of Alyssa Edwards. And if you are a Drag Race fan, you will get why that is objectively the funniest thing you could possibly imagine.
I've always known her as Alicia Edwards.
It's Alicia.
Over the years that I've been talking about TNA with friends and stuff, and Eddie Edwards and stuff, I've always known her as Alicia Edwards.
There we go.
And I've never been corrected on it either.
Oh, well, Tom Hannafan has things to say.
But yeah, this was good. Everyone, did their big dives and jumped on top of each other and stuff. There was a really fun spot where Edwards was on Jody Threat's back because she was climbing up the steel, and then she sort of like shrugged her off, so she did like a nesty plunge onto everyone on the outside. Then everyone fell onto everyone on the outside. Some good stuff on here.
Yeah, I really, really liked this as a way to open the show. There was a bit of bagginess in certain places at the beginning, but I think by the way end of the time it got there, the pace had been really intense and everyone was hitting their spots and doing their things right. It was a fun showcase of this match, which for me is incredibly TNA Ultimate X.
It's very TNA match.
If we play the game of name a TNA stipulation, the first thing I will think of is the Ultimate X. And so I was really, really pleased to see it. I really liked it. Representation is so important. It's something that it matters to people. That's why I'm really grateful that Zaya Brookside was representing the I forgot to dye my hair community, because I felt seen in that moment. She forgot to bleach it for ages. But no, it was a really fun thing that there were so many great little spots. The one you just mentioned, Giselle Shaw's spear on Jody, like leaping off the back of Danny Luna, was great. Yeah. Great visual. Them all hanging up the top kind of thing. And
yeah, that was the end. So you had Giselle Shaw and Danny Luna and Tasha Steelz all like scaling the cables at the same time, and then especially just sort of like fighting each other off one by one. So like Luna goes down and then Steelz goes down. So eventually Shaw's the only one remaining, and they get down the X.
Yeah.
Oh, it was awesome. A really, really cool finish.
Yeah, and I really thought I have two things. The first one is that I think Giselle Shaw has been sort of hovering around that main event women's title situation, so it's kind of important that she goes for it now, kind of thing, to really push her over the edge. The other thing is that Tom said at one point during the climax how apropos it is for the Knockouts to be the first match on this show, and that instantly made me think of when it was like, well, it's really important that the Shida is the end of Dynamite 200. It's very apropos, and we all thought like, well, no, it isn't. In this case, I think Impact and TNA have done a brilliant job with the women's division and the things that they've really pushed. And I don't even just mean in the past few years. I mean right the way back with the Knockouts Tag Titles and thinking of, Awesome Kong and Gail Kim. So it was very apropos for this show to start with a lot of women, new signings, really making a bit of a statement in 10. This is our first match on this show. I really liked it. I was grateful for it.
I've said it time and time again, but it does bear repeating. When WWE invented women's wrestling in 2015, TNA had done it 10 years prior, and the women in TNA were getting better ratings than the men were in sort of 2007, 2008, to the point when they were going to have their own separate show because they were like, this is a huge ratings draw for us. Gail Kim and Awesome Kong and like
Tara, Mickey James.
Like the rest of this knockout division. They're outdrawing Kurt Angle and Sting and Samoa Joe and AJ Styles because people were so into... We were like... Women's wrestling, it was like we were bereft of it for so long. They were like, oh, this is so cool. Like, certainly in the West anyway, obviously in Japan, it's always been a big thing. But here in the West, we were starved for it. So it became this huge part. So yeah, I think you're right. Like TNA and women's wrestling have been so entwined. They've always been at the forefront of that, way before anyone else in North America had been.
Yeah. So I was glad.
On this level, it should be said.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy for Giselle Shaw as well. I used to see Shaw a lot on local indies here in the UK. And I'm a big Shaw mark. So very happy to see them get the win here. Really, really great. We had a recap of the pre-show where Joe Hendry had a stare-off and a song-off with the former top dollar in WWE, that being AJ Francis now. And Francis then cut a promo, but because this is TNA, the audio did not play properly. And we only caught like the last couple of words of it.
There were a few production teething problems here. There was a moment where Matthew was just sort of like stood waiting for the shot to move away from them. And then, you know, it was a...
If you want to bring TNA back, you've got to do this.
We need to cut to Don West and Mike Tenay reading a script. Yeah,
like you know, if when AEW eventually get around to doing like their big 10-year anniversary shows, I want them to have production issues because like audio issues are an AEW staple. Like if they have clean audio the entire way through, I'm like, oh, this isn't AEW. This is not the AEW I remember. So no, I need to have my production issues. It's what makes me know.
Like if we have a Kevin Dunn tribute show, it's just nothing but zooms the whole way.
Up next was probably my least favorite part of the show. It was PCO versus Dirty Dango, and it was thrown out pretty early doors because PCO, Dirty Dango's crew got involved and beat down PCO, and then Santino, the director of Authority, came out and made it a 6-man tag, which ended up being PCO, Rhino, and Jake Something against Dango, Alpha Bravo, and Oleg Prudis, who was the former Kozlov in WWE. And this was TV stuff. That's the only reason. Like the action was fine. It's just it felt like TV angles that were on pay-per-view.
I agree with that. It was pre-show stuff at best, kind of thing. Yeah. However, your first hour of your pay-per-view for me kind of is a settling down period of time before you want to really start focusing. I imagine like hosting a party and people arriving, you know, and so it's one that is like cool to be on, it's whatever, and your audience is still there for the taking. They're there to be massaged, so you don't want to exhaust them too early. So I kind of cut them a bit of slack here, but I do completely agree with you. The PCO stuff is nonsense.
Oh, PCO is a wonderful human being.
It's absolute nonsense, but I love it. Like, I want to be clear. The whole Frankenstein business, I was like, what in the camp is going on here? And then when I realized it was, the French Canadian, now it makes so much more sense. But also, this is why I can never take wrestling too seriously, because this is a part of it, and I love it. Like, you know, as much as I do believe that this is the best storytelling medium in the world, as much as I care passionately about it, as much as I love talking about it, I love this stuff as much.
I'm a big PCO guy.
Yeah.
Like, he does not know what pain is.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of his gimmick. That's why he is like Canadian Frankenstein, because like you just hit him and he like, I've seen this dude take gnarly bumps. Like, he used to do some wild stuff in GCW, and it was like, just gets up, or like Joey Janela's Spring Break and stuff. He just get up and just walk it off. Well, and, I mean, it just doesn't affect him.
His moves look like they cause him a bit of pain. You know how many times we've been playing the game of who's got the prettiest moonsault in the game? Who's got the diciest moonsault in the game? Is it Lita or PCO? I don't know, but they both make 100%
Lita.
Back off.
She misses 98% of them, really, or barely gets over for 98% of them.
He barely got over with both of the big ones in this match, but it's still nonetheless. It was, and I did also think it went a little too long, because obviously, have we said the shenanigans part yet, where we added in Rhino and Jake Something? Jake Something launching himself over the top rope was great.
Yeah, Jake Something's very entertaining.
I sat back and went, that was sick. It did go a bit long. It was a bit pre-show, but I enjoyed myself.
Earlier in the day, a mystery blonde woman arrived, and Matt Raymold was like, I know who that is. I'm not going to say it, but I know who that is. Nice little bit of tease for later on in the show. We then had the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championships on the line as MK Ultra of Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly defended against Decay of Rosemary and Havoc. Good return pop for Decay. This, again, was kind of like, it didn't get a huge amount of time. It was there, it's that first hour of just, we've had a hot opener with the Ultimate X, these 2 little cooldown matches and some TV shenanigans and then title change here. And then the pay-per-view begins in earnest.
Yeah.
That makes it sound like the first hour of the show was a second hour of the pre-show, I guess, in a way.
It kind of does.
But this was, pretty good. I mean, it's like them Havoc kicking out of Masha Slamovich's snowplow at 1 was pretty cool because they were like, commentary putting over hard. Think about the amount of times Masha Slamovich has won over the past year, dominated with that snowplow. And then, Decay hit their double team choke bomb for the win.
When Decay came out, and it was the second sort of, well, it was actually, if you include PCO, the third sort of gothy, spooky, countercultural, gory horror movie. I was like, no wonder Luke Owen loves TNA this much. This is so coded. But also, given that they had absolutely no heat, it wasn't scheduled, and so it went in just completely blind. I thought they did a really good job of getting me into it, and it was really a title change. It's nice, always a nice pop.
It was a nice pop.
So yeah.
Backstage, Scott D'Amore put it over Huddle for Health, and then we had a recap of the pre-show where Macklin beat Rich Swann. He then did an interview saying that he's won the first match of the new era of TNA, so he's going to get back into that world title picture. And then Scott D'Amore came out for a promo. He did not come out to Team Canada music, so boo, -5 stars. And he brought out Dorian Pena from AAA, and they put over the partnership that they've had, and they're here to announce a partnership between TNA and AAA.
But this time they signed a very legal-looking contract.
Very legal-looking contract.
It came out in a little folder. That means it's legit.
Yeah. And, cool. It's great. Like, working with AAA was actually really good for AEW.
Yeah.
So you can only work better for TNA as well.
I just love that we're seeing more collaboration in this industry. Like, I hate, one of my biggest bugbears as a WWE fan was always that they just didn't acknowledge that it existed elsewhere. Like, I like the idea that Albert couldn't come back from Japan as Albert, and they'd be like, well, he went to Japan and he won a load of belts and he's come back here. Like, why should we pretend it didn't happen? Like, why should we pretend the AJ Styles is an outlier in that regard, where AJ Styles came back and instantly was billed as someone who was massive all over the world.
Yeah, or like Brock Lesnar being big in UFC when he came back.
UFC's a bit different in that regard.
So, in a way, I suppose.
To WWE.
Yeah, WWE, yeah. And it's like, they've been this sort of closed off.
Yeah.
They had their partnerships throughout the 90s. They did some stuff they were going to do stuff with Michinoku Pro and AAA. They actually did AAA as well. These sorts of various NWA in the late 90s. But post 2000, it really was just this closed off. No, we don't
ECW in 97.
Yeah. We don't do this. No. We're our own company. We're number one. We're a distant number one at that. So we don't need to acknowledge anyone else outside of our 4 walls. But everywhere else in the wrestling world, it's always been it's working together. TNA had a great relationship with New Japan. They had a relationship with New Japan that I don't think they used to its full potential. But New Japan and Ring of Honor and CMLL and all that sort of stuff. So and TNA. One of the things I really loved about TNA is it did have a very international feel to it. I used to love when they did the World Cup and they used to have like Team USA and Team Europe and Team Mexico and Team Japan. I loved all that sort of stuff. So this is a great thing for them.
I said it before, I don't have the loyalty to letters. Like, I'm not an AEW mark or a WWE mark or what I suppose you could probably argue I am, because I was a WWF fan when I was a kid and all that stuff. But like we all have our preferences in the way that we like wrestling done. More than anything else, the only thing I really want from this industry is opportunity for the wrestlers. It's a workers' rights thing. I want them to have the ability to not be beholden to one company. And it's that's not to say not to sign a contract exclusively with one company and honor that contract, but I want an industry where they're able to go and ply their trade abroad, where they're able to go and get new experiences, where they're able to make money doing the thing that they love. That's what I want. And so seeing that, become something to be celebrated is a big thing for me, and I liked it a lot.
Just don't have that workers' rights conversation with CM Punk because, can get real messy.
I'll get in big trouble.
It kind of led into where I feel like this is where the show really started.
Yes.
As much as I enjoyed Ultimate X and some of the other stuff, this is where, for me, Hard to Kill really kicked off. And it was a triple threat match for the X Division Championship. El Hijo del Vikingo versus Chris Sabin versus Kushida for the title. Sabin going in as champion and walking out as such. This is one of those matches that is like, this is pure TNA. Like this match, it was triple threat, X Division action. Who better to do that than Chris Sabin? Who better to do that than Vikingo, who is like, you know, one of the prima donna luchadors that we have. Prima donnas,
I liked it.
About premier luchadors.
Stick with it.
And Kushida, who is absolutely awesome as well, and like the best of the Super Juniors and stuff. This is awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. And it's incredible that like this is what put TNA on the map, like kind of back in the day, was the X Division stuff. But now, because WWE also essentially have X Division wrestling on their show, and AEW have X Division wrestling, and all of indies do it because everyone's been influenced by the X Division from the mid 2000s. It kind of feels a bit like white noise at times. Yeah. But this was awesome. This was excellent stuff.
Now, I can see why you say that, because I loved the X Division when I was a kid, and I was watching it because it was smaller guys doing more athletic stuff, and that's why I was always so drawn to the cruiserweights, and you know, so it felt cool. I really liked the X Division in that regard, and as you say, now that we see, it's so interesting actually that you say that now that we see it everywhere, it becomes white noise, because there was one thing in this match where I like smoked my pipe and went tee-hee about the way it finished, and I'll get to it in a second. Just to say that this match was great.
Oh, it really was.
It was so good. I didn't love, and it's something that I don't like about Vikingo specifically, is as to my taste. If you love it, you love it, and I respect that completely, and I respect Vikingo for having his own style. I don't love anything that requires... I hate that I sound so cornet, but I don't like flips when they don't add to it. When I see Charlotte doing her like handspring forward to do a clothesline, that doesn't feel like it adds any more to the clothesline.
It's all about the momentum.
There is no momentum from that. It's less momentum than a normal clothesline.
That's her fault for moving in underwater. Like that's not the move's fault.
I don't think that him doing a forward flip to do a Hurricane Rana adds more momentum to that Hurricane Rana. What?
Torque. It adds torque to the move.
All right, you're doing a really good job of selling it, but it's not working. I don't think that Kushida doing a little cartwheel before doing a kick to break up a submission adds any more.
That is all momentum.
I don't agree with you.
That actually powers up his legs more.
You're a little troll.
It gives it a +1 buff.
This is my least favorite day. But yeah, that's a personal thing that I don't like. You might love it, and that's fair. This match at one point just went, done that now. Let's go. And it went hard.
So, you know, when you're playing D&D, you have your proficiencies, and you get a little proficiency bonus, and it makes your moves hurt more. That's what these are.
Is that accurate? I don't know if that's like... I'm trying... I play, and I'm like, I don't know if that's quite the way I
D&D
put it. But no, look.
If you're proficient in something, it helps with your rolls.
That's true. Yeah. I thought you meant it helps your attacks, and I was like, well, I guess yeah, whatever. Look. I'm trying to say that once they got over that part, the match went ballistic, and I absolutely loved every second of it, because it was the snap German suplexes. All three of them, I thought, had a really good chemistry with each other. There was no sloppy waiting for stuff. There was no like, oh, I'll just hover over here until you fully finish that move so that then I could do it. Because there were so many incredible submission sequences where like Kushida's in the middle of Vikingo, and then Sabin kicks him down, and then it's like, ow, that's hurt me, but it's also hurt you. I loved all of that stuff, which built to this amazing crescendo where a Canadian destroyer actually had an impact.
It was a springboard Canadian destroyer on the entrance ramp. It was beautiful by Chris Sabin to Vikingo.
It was a beautiful thing.
And it led into the finish, because we had a top rope German suplex by Sabin to Kushida. And he then hooks him up to get the cradle shot. I love this as well. Kushida tries to fight out of the cradle shot by locking in his submission, the hoverboard lock. But Sabin fights out of that to hit the cradle shot and got the win.
All of this made sense. All of this followed through. There was a logic to it all. Like, you know, I'm going to embrace my inner old man yells at Cloud. If you take a Canadian destroyer on the rampway, that's you done, my friend. And what a great way to make it so that your AAA Mega Champion in this brand new partnership does not lose, right? He was just out. He couldn't get... Not only was he done far away from the ring, so that when we got the pinfall, there was a shot of him trying to claw his way forward, which I absolutely loved. This was... For me... A move like that should have an impact like that. I absolutely loved it. Top.
I'm not going to name drop, because I'm not really that sort of person. But
no, you famously never
I would never name drop.
You simply
Dan.
wouldn't.
I just simply wouldn't, Dan. That's just not the person that I am. But I will say that I was texting a top star of the British wrestling independent scene over the weekend.
Which one?
I'm not going to say because I'm not going to name drop Dan. It's not the sort of person that I am. But I was messaging a very big name on the British independent scene over the weekend. And we were joking about the overuse of Canadian destroyers. I'm a mark for a Canadian destroyer.
I love the move.
Yeah. But and this is my
P.T. Williams. That's why you're a mark for it.
He's not a star of the British independent scene.
No, I mean why you love a Canadian destroyer.
Well, yeah, Pete Williams was like one of my favorite guys when I got back into wrestling. I was like, that's the coolest move I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because it's wicked.
It just should work.
Because I always bring this story up a lot because it's like the perfect encapsulation of really how I feel about the Canadian destroyer. I was at a Rev Pro show in 2018, I want to say 2018, because it was the one where Andy Datson was texting during the main event, and it really annoyed me. Well, he wasn't texting; he was buying a Christmas jumper during the main event of the wrestling. I think what annoyed me more actually was when we went to a New Japan show and he was texting in the middle of Minoru Suzuki versus Okada, and I'm like, "Come on, man, watch the wrestling!"
Oh dear.
But in the opening match between two young boys, basically, they did a Canadian destroyer on the apron, which was a setup move for a near fall. I mean, only David and I was like, this move might have jumped the shark somewhat.
Moves should matter, and that move in particular, you land square on your head. It looks so amazing.
Yeah,
it's not like a super kick, which at this point I'm fine with it just being a strike that gets done. That move should knock you out, and it did here. And credit to them for making me genuinely leap out of my seat seeing a Canadian destroyer in 2024. Loved it.
It's about making the move mean something.
Yes.
Raven protected the DDT.
Yeah.
Load of other people hit DDTs, but when Raven does one, he was like, "That's my finish. You don't kick out of it."
Yeah.
So
I loved it.
Yeah. Great match. And it was then followed up with an awesome main event quality match here in the middle of the card. Alex Hammerstone versus Josh Alexander. This match was so great. I wrote in my notes here, this is like watching Kurt Angle versus Matt Morgan in TNA if Matt Morgan was well good.
I can see that. I can absolutely see that.
It was just wicked because they were telling the story of the technical proficiency of Josh Alexander, you know, always going for that leg and going for the leg and trying to get that ankle lock in versus the absolute raw strength and power of Hammerstone. But that's not to say that Alexander was just, I'm the small technical guy, because he was like body slamming him onto the apron and doing like,
there was a lot of power.
He was doing his big power moves too. I thought they worked together brilliantly well. My favorite part of this, though, and this is one of the great things about Josh Alexander, because Hammerstone makes his big comeback and he shakes the ropes, does the big Ultimate Warrior shaking of the ropes and stuff, and he does a float over. Like Alexander like charges towards him and he floats over. He tweaks the knee, and Alexander smells blood, and instantly he's like, bang, there, and he just straight for it, straight into the ankle lock and stuff. It was so great, and Hammerstone hit his pendulum nightmare pendulum, but couldn't get the cover because of the leg, and Alexander was just had to roll to get out of the ring and get out of the way. And it was getting to a point where Alexander did not have much of anything, so you could hit him with a TKO, and it was a really weak kick out. He did not have a lot left in him, so he just about managed to get the C4 spike for the win. But it was a proper, like, Alexander survived this match in some ways. Never, like, in the same way if you said, like, he survived this match, but, like, Hammerstone was the dominant force. No, it's just Hammerstone had more in the tank left than Alexander did.
Yeah.
But Alexander was the better wrestler on that day and made what he had left count.
I've done Drag Race. I'm going to do musical theatre because the entire match I'm sitting there going, Alexander Hammerstone. You've not seen Hamilton, have you?
Absolutely not.
No, it's the three of you who have in the chat will think I killed that.
I don't have an extra £500 to drop on tickets for stuff.
It's on Disney Plus.
Is it really?
Yeah. They did a pro shot, and it was going to be in cinemas, but then the pandemic happened. So
is it good? Is it a good like screening of it?
Yeah, it's really good. Nothing is as good as going to see it, but
yeah. I think that the theatre industry has priced out the everyman.
Disagree with you. I'll hook you up. We'll talk. I mean, it's getting there, but at the moment, you can still. I got to see. Well, that's a different podcast. Anyway, this is what I came for. This is my kind of wrestling. This is what I love about this sport facsimile. I love the very simple storytelling. It's an open challenge, so there's no giant I love it when there's a wide overarching narrative, but the story that I need, the build that I need, is two people competing and why. One of them's like, I'm a hottest free agent in the industry, come at me. The other one's like, cool, I'm a technical wizard, I'm gonna have a go at you.
I am the guy here in TNA. I'm the measuring stick.
Let's make it happen.
You want to come in here, you've got to beat me.
Yeah.
The longest reigning champion.
And I absolutely loved what they built together throughout this match. The situation with the focus on the back of Hammerstone, where it then makes it so that it's a little bit harder for him to do his moves, but we got a moment with the ankle lock where he wraps the legs around, which for me, short of an overhead suplex, that's my favorite thing in wrestling. The only thing is I need a singlet coming down as well to make it happen. I love Kurt Angle. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I really thought they did an absolutely brilliant job with this match. And the other thing is, I don't know Hammerstone very well. I know the name, seen bits and bobs. I'm not an expert. I'm not someone who has followed his career. I don't really watch MLW and all that stuff. So I'm not someone who is in the know.
It's not as accessible here in the UK.
Yeah. But I know who he is now, because as a result of this match, I've got everything I need to know about this person. He's a beefcake. He's got an incredible look. He's so powerful. He's got something really special. It's not dissimilar to the Gunther situation where a big guy sells and makes it. I mean, Josh Alexander is a former world champion, so it's like, you know, it's not like he's just selling to anybody. But it was believable that he was going to demolish this guy. Also believable that he would lose to him. Yeah. It made him look like an absolute star wherever he goes. That's probably why Triple H was there, let's be honest. He's built in the model of a WWE star. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. This, for me, was match of the night.
Yeah, it's between that and the Knockouts Championship match as for my match of the night. Yeah. I thought this was brilliant. Yeah. This was so great. Yeah. And actually, the next match, I also loved. It was a 4-way for the TNA Tag Team titles. Again, you want to put a match on that you're like, that's TNA. I watched that match and I'm like, this makes me think of TNA. This makes me think of the company that I fell in love with in 2005. This match here, 4-way tag match of ABC versus the Rascals versus Grizzled Young Vets versus Mike Bailey and Laredo Kid. Was supposed to be Trent Seven, but he had travel issues. He couldn't get into where they were, so he was replaced with Laredo Kid. And it was just watching 4 awesome tag teams doing awesome tag team stuff. Or 3 awesome tag teams and Bailey and Laredo Kid, who I'm like an established tag team like the others are.
But are good in their own right.
But there are, I know we're putting over that Bailey's like a guy who can tag with people, and he like always makes magic with whoever he's tagging with, and they felt like an established tag team. I mean, they had a video promo before this that showed like the awesome tag teams of TNA history, like the Dudley Boys of Team 3D, like AJ and Daniels of LAX, both versions of LAX, and America's Most Wanted, Beer Money. And then the Naturals were shown in there. That's like, oh, look, honey, ain't no one saying the Naturals are one of the great. No one sit here and be like, oh, man, Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas, like they're the tag team. Was like, no, they were like the French fries. Shane Douglas, as to quote something from the Attitude Era podcast, was one of the best things of their act, and even then, lower card at best.
I know this was the men's tag team, but show me the beautiful people at the very least.
But anyway, I'm also loving Grizzled Young Vets in TNA. I'm a massive fan of the Grizzled Young Vets. I don't think there was anyone more upset on this planet than I was when they got repackaged in NXT to be spooky goth nonsense. I hated that because that is not my Zach Gibson. That is not Liverpool's #1 Zach Gibson. It's not my guy. And I was great seeing them back to being the Grizzled Young Vets, and they were awesome here. The only thing that I would say is, again, -5 stars. They didn't come out to You Never Walk Alone, because they should always be coming out to You Never Walk Alone. But this was just basically what this was 8 lads doing moves. Yeah. And all 8 lads did their moves, and they were awesome. And it was brilliant. I had so much fun with this.
Yeah, I did too. There was a moment when they all get in the ring to do their sort of like let them fight spot, and there was, because of the small venue, because of the way the ring is set up, the clattering of the pitter-patter of feet on the ring was something I leant forward and had another moment. And then there was a series of yikesy moves that had me very worried, but that was the the frenetic energy and the pace of the match was going to lend you to that. I enjoyed it very, very much. I thought the closing sequence in particular was very great.
Yeah, Bayley hitting that.
Very great. That was really bad grammar.
It's very great.
I hate that.
I'll put that in my next 3 count.
Great.
I particularly enjoyed Bayley doing that wonderful top rope poison rana to Drake. Holy heckins. And then the ultimate weapon by him as well, which is one of the most like grossest not taking that move for love nor money. But the Rascals got in to break it up. Everyone basically got their moments to shine, but in the end it was ABC that got the win here. And probably the right move, probably the right call. I just thought I wrote my notes here. Amazing action throughout. That felt like TNA.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we got shown who that mystery blonde was. Ash by Elegance, the former Dana Brooke in WWE.
I hate that name, but I'm really happy for her. I don't. Why is her name Ash by Elegance?
I love it.
Okay.
Because
convince me, genuinely.
Okay, I'm not going to try and convince you otherwise, because if you don't like it, then you
no, but I'm open.
The reason why I love it is because no one else sounds like that.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like, she could have just come in as Ash Diddley D, and like that's her name is Ash Diddley D, and you're just like, oh, there's 100 Ash Diddley Ds in this world, particularly in this world of professional wrestling. But Ash by Elegance, that separates you out from like everyone else on the roster. Everyone else on the roster page, your name is Ash by Elegance.
That's as good as argument as any. Yeah, I think that's fair.
And I think it's cool. It makes it sound like it's a perfume, and the whole thing is this style and elegance, glamour, and that. So yeah, it works. I'm quite in for it.
Yeah, I think the reason I didn't immediately vibe with it was I was like, well, that's not a name. That's not how names work. But then, as you say, that's kind of maybe the point, and that's fair enough.
Neither, The Rock's not a name.
That's true.
Triple H is not a name.
It's a nickname.
Yeah, well, but it's his name.
Yeah. Well, his name is Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
I'm aware of where the Triple H comes
from.
When
some people call me DJ.
Do they?
Because my middle name is Joe, Daniel J.
I know, but do people call you DJ? I've never heard anyone call you DJ.
No, you all removed the J from my name. You all just called me Dan Layton from the off, and I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm rebranding then.
You could have stopped us.
Nah.
Pete's asked us not to call him Chopper anymore.
Well, I was going to change my name anyway, so I was going to change my first name for a while, so you helped me along the way. No, but I'm really, really happy for her, because I think it's a really good space for her to be. And I think no one worked harder, according to everyone in the company, to try and better themselves. Dana was there right at the beginning, right the way to the end. So, as in, she'd get there first and do some reps, and she'd be there at the end helping to set the ring down and stuff like that. And there's an argument that she'd have got better in that time. But then also, when you're not given this, I always see this. People being like, well, only your best people should go on telly. We often see this when we talk about women's wrestling on Collision. People always say, well, the best people should be on telly, and if you're not good enough, you shouldn't be on telly. Well, you can only get better if you get the opportunity. It's opportunity that we're talking about. And this is the prime place for her to have a really good opportunity to hone her craft, to get this new character, to really develop her skills. And I'm really excited for her. I would love to see Tennille Dashwood come back and them have a little something together.
Rekindle that partnership again.
And to that point, enter Trinity, who I think her presence in TNA was a really smart choice. If I'm operating under the assumption that she's heading back to WWE at the Rumble.
I think she's in the Rumble.
Right. So, and that's why I'm sort of talking a little bit like this is the end of her career in TNA, or at least the end of this run in TNA, because she left with Mercedes in a moment of rebellion and I sticking up for myself and what I believe in and banking on myself. But as popular and as enigmatic and charismatic as Naomi is, she wasn't Sasha Banks. So Sasha Banks was always the star of that partnership and had the skills and the ability to go off to New Japan, to immediately sign with AEW. Trinity wasn't on that level. I hope that's fair to say. But she got to go to TNA, to Impact, be the big fish in the pond, and deliver and again continue, craft, hone, make a name for herself in that scenario. Something far more interesting for her as a wrestler to make that choice. And I think the proof of that was in this match, which was brilliant.
She walked into TNA with a name.
Mhm.
I think she's walking back into TNA with a bigger name.
Yes, I would agree.
And more experience under her belt, more big match experience under her belt. The sort of big match experience she wasn't really given in WWE, even when she was champion.
Look, exactly. She was a champion. I'm not trying to diminish anything that she's achieved already.
No, but she was never presented. Like, I still think it is baffling that they never sold the Glow belt.
Yeah.
Why that? Like, 'cause they're so toyetic. Like, of course, like, surely would do. But then she wasn't really given long enough with that belt to, and like, there was that big thing of, Twitter kicked up that they weren't going to be on the WrestleMania main card. So they slotted them onto the WrestleMania main card and then only gave them 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, there's only so much you can accomplish with those sort of time constraints.
Yeah.
But here, she goes here, and you're right. She can be that big fish, small pond. And she's leaving as an even bigger fish in my eyes.
I agree.
And that is concluding here. I think you're right in terms of she's going back to WWE, of dropping the Knockouts Championship to Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace, who once told me, like, in an interview that... I wouldn't name drop, Dan. Like, I don't drop names. I just sometimes do my job. That she... it was when AEW was starting up, and she was like, no, I'm going to stick with Impact. Because that is a locker room that respects women's wrestling. And that's the place I want to be. And they have very much done that. Yeah. To her enormous credit. And here she is. She won the Call Your Shot, and she won the world title here in an awesome, awesome, awesome match. One of my favorite things about this, to be a bit glib about it perhaps, is that the referee was Allison Lee, who was so much taller than both of them.
Jordynne Grace is 5'3".
Oh yeah,
that is mini.
Yeah, and like there's this referee there.
Yeah,
it's like Charlotte Flair being in the ring with like Zelina Vega and everyone. It's just like towering above everyone in the division. But like Grace was just showing off her really like her big, strong power game. But Trinity was kind of what we're talking about with Alex Shelley, doing that working smarter, not harder. And she had this really, really good moment where she couldn't get in Starstruck, which is her submission finisher. She couldn't do it. So she effectively tricked Grace into getting to a roll-up like competition, like to get roll-up 2 count, and then transitioned into it. Like, I can't get you down to the mat to do this, so I'm going to get you to come down to the mat of your own accord, and then we'll get into this. That was really, really smart play by Trinity. I just thought this was so great. But I particularly loved the moment when she tried to lock in the full Nelson, but she couldn't do it because she used the full Nelson to then transition into Starstruck. And Jordynne Grace was like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to see a full Nelson? Oh, I'll full Nelson you. And full Nelson the bejesus out of this poor girl. And it's a point where I was like, that's the greatest full Nelson I've ever seen. And like, there have been many people who've tried to get the full Nelson over as a finisher, and no one's achieved it in my eyes. But I believe that is a finish right there.
Yeah.
She just like crumpled her down with this full Nelson. It was awesome. She hit the muscle buster for a really, really good 2 count. That's when Trinity tricked her into doing the Starstruck. She hit the rear view for a near fall, and they were like, Matt Rainwell was like, that's her 2 best weapons, and she cannot put Jordynne Grace down. So she does a heat seeker on the apron for another one. And then Grace just power bombs her into the earth, basically, apart from the fact when Trinity muscle Grace up into a power bomb of her own, gets her into Starstruck, and Grace just stands up out of it. It's like, not today.
Yeah.
And just hits her with a German suplex, back fit, juggernaut driver for the win. A fantastic match. Loved this.
And it was all about the sort of story to get those moves. It was like, it was too early to hit that then, it was too early to hit that then, it was too early to get the Starstruck in, it was too early to get this in. And the narrative that they told within the story of the match was really effective. Made both of them look very strong. Ultimately made Jordynne Grace look like, if this is the woman you're building this division around, in this new era, and if Trinity's on her way out, as we are led to believe, that is how you do it. That is how you take those chess pieces and you put them in the position.
This is Trinity undefeated in TNA
until that moment.
A very TNA thing to do, which is to bring in a name from outside and just not have them lose.
Yeah.
But she did the business on the way out. And she is part of the TV tapings as well, which I won't spoil here. And just like, a really good run.
I have a great deal of respect for the choices that she's made.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. And I thought the Grace looked fantastic at the end of this match. Trinity put her over massively strong while never making herself look weak.
Yeah.
It's a really smart play. And I thought it was brilliant. As I said, like it's a toss up between that and the Hammerstone Alexander match, and some of the main events as well, of like of my match of the night.
Yeah.
But I thought this was terrific.
Yeah, I agree.
And that was the show. I had a really good time with this show.
I did too.
It was fun to be back in the world of TNA. It was fun to see just like what's funny as well is that, you know, we're here being like, oh, you know, it's fun to be back in TNA, but this is the show that Impact was doing anyway.
Yeah.
You know, Impact were doing these sorts of shows. It's just now they've got the TNA branding on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in for this.
I also feel a little bit like it's like it was a really good show, really fun one to be a part of this moment of this beginning of this new company. Talk to me again at Sacrifice. Let's see what your next period is going to look like.
Yep.
You know, are they doing? Is No Surrender a pay-per-view, or is that just an
that's
episode
a TV,
of telly?
yeah.
Right. So Sacrifice is the next one they're building to in March.
Yeah.
I want to see what that looks like.
Me too.
You know.
Let's get into the rest of your Ultra Chats here. We do have some Patreon shoutouts, but we'll do those tomorrow on the Raw podcast because we've run slightly long here. But we do have a result of the Nic Knack poll. Do you know what?
Yeah.
Do you know who loved it?
How many?
69%.
Nice. It's over. All
69% of the audience loved the name Nic Knack as a finisher for Nic Nemeth. And Zeppy here says, when I saw Dana Brooke come out as Ash by Elegance, all I could think of was that clip where Triple H told Kurt Angle, that's gimmick infringement, because he said, woo. Been loving the pod. It keeps me sane when work gets slow. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ian Wolf has been a member for 3 months in a row. Said, I missed the pay-per-view due to the NFL, but if you've not seen the Joe Hendry music video on AJ Francis, do so. It's hysterical. Local hero Joe Hendry has got a great litany of... he once did a great music video for us.
Yeah.
When we hit 500,000 subscribers, he did a video that was so good. It was a really, really good music video.
Yeah.
It's probably still actually in the WrestleTalk archives. If you search for Joe Hendry 500,000 subscribers, I think it's still there as a music video.
There you go.
He's a wonderful, wonderful human being. Joe does a fantastic William Regal impersonation.
Good.
I think Joe Hendry has the best William Regal impersonation.
I don't have a frame of reference for all the various...
I wouldn't drop names.
No, of course you wouldn't.
That's not who I am, Dan.
I'll text a star of the musical theatre and see.
Tony Ramos here says, I, for one, would love a TNA review because they're great and deserve the recognition, but I understand you guys have a business to run. So, I have an idea. Can your audience that want a review sponsor the reviews in some way? I would pitch in for that. Well, I guess that's Patreon.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking to do some new things on our Patreon page, expand some things we're doing on our Patreon page. So let us know what you want to see. You know, sign up for the Patreon and let us know what you want us to do.
There you go.
BM Whitehouse says, reviewing smaller shows is a double-edged sword. If no one talks about it, no one checks it out. Going in Raw got me to check out NXT UK because they were the only ones talking about it. I get why you don't, but I'd wish you'd review smaller shows for fun. That is what I think. That's this. That's what Deadline was. The Collision podcast that we have on a Monday is opening up the opportunity for us to review these shows because we're already booked into review shows, the two of us anyway. So we can explore and do something like this. I mean, that's the thing is what BM Whitehouse is saying. It is a double-edged sword. If you don't talk about it, no one watches it.
It's a cycle, yeah.
It's a cycle. Yeah. And it's a vicious one at that. Caleb has been a member for 27 months in a row, says, Dan Layton, thoughts on 3-count Royal Rumble and having the deepest V?
I watched the episode last night in the bath and left a comment about your appalling grammar. And then before
someone was in support of me, by the way.
It was wrong. You were just objectively wrong. I even did research to make sure I wasn't wrong.
No, someone messaged me to be like, no, your one is actually grammatically correct and everyone's made you be ungrammatically correct.
What about setup?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was your liberal use of a hyphen stretches the very premise of the 3-count.
I have reached a point in my 3-count run where I'm just doing things to annoy Pete and annoy certain people in the comments.
Professional troll Luke Owen.
Well, because like people keep saying like it's the 3-count and people wanted me to do serious predictions. I'm like, no, it's a nonsense comedy show.
This is why you like it when Tony Khan goes mental on Twitter, because you and him are the same kind of shit poster. Sorry, mother. But no, I appreciate it very much. I just was sad I wasn't your number 30 entrant. One of your 12 number 30 entrants that you chose. I could have been.
Just Donnie's been in Memberg for 28 months in a row. Says, Dan, you're looking suave this morning.
Thanks, I showered.
And we've got some new Membergs. N64 Live Podcast. Thank you, Cliff. And Roxy Pocket has become a member.
Roxy Rocket.
What did I say?
Roxy Pocket.
Yeah, Roxy Rocket. Do apologise.
Roxy Pocket is maybe Roxy Rocket's sister. I don't know.
No, that's Poxy Rocket.
Poxy Rocket, and then Roxy Pocket, and then Poxy Pocket. Yeah.
Also, I've got to check the final poll for what you thought of this show.
So we do this every week. We check the final poll, and the mods are very helpful in putting a little note at the bottom of our Ultrachat document to say check the final poll. Make sure we do that. It looks like this because we keep forgetting.
It is in about 48 font size. It is red with yellow backgrounds.
But I think that be careful to not end the stream at the same time.
Oh, I've done that.
I know you.
I've done that once before, Dan.
I was watching, and then you just disappeared.
Yeah. Try to play it up like it was a technical error. No, it was me.
It was you.
It was 100% me. We have got the end of the results of our poll, though. 84% thumbs up with 14% thumbs in the middle.
Good. I think that I completely agree. What a good first pay-per-view of the year.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed that. And I hope you enjoyed this too. Please do press the subscribe button. Give us a little thumbs up as well. Get in your comment down below with what you thought of this episode. And let us know what you thought of AEW Collision. Let us know what you thought of New Japan over the weekend as well. And the debut of Jack Perry. Loads on this weekend. So get in your thoughts down below. And we'll be back tomorrow. What's on Raw tomorrow?
Oh, God. Who knows?
What is on Raw tomorrow?
That's a good question. There is... it's Jinder Mahal. Jinder
Mahal. Oh, it's Jinder Mahal and Seth. That's right. Of course it is.
For the world title.
Yeah, of course it is.
That's the big story that coming.
Jinder winning the belt.
Let's click. Yeah, big time now.
Yeah, it's part of that tri-monthly, tri-weekly push.
Tony's managed to get him over.
You're welcome, WWE.
There's Raw. So it is Jinder Mahal versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. The Miz and R-Truth battle Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Dirty Dom and JD McDonough look to make a statement against DIY. And Gunther returns to Raw.
Right.
That's what's on the way. But really, we're all there to see Jinder Mahal. You can't hinder Jinder.
Can't hinder that Jinder.
He's off to win it.
The attack of clones.
And then we're going to build to Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal at WrestleMania nights 1 and 2.
Yeah. The attack of the clones of professional wrestlers and internet fandom. But I'm
not letting you do this again tomorrow. I'm not making you make me watch Attack of the Clones so I know what you're talking about. It's not happening.
Well, that's tomorrow here on the WrestleTalk podcast. We'll be reviewing Monday Night Raw, and then on Thursday we'll be doing Dynamite, and then Saturday will be the SmackDown review. Make sure you get your tickets for our Royal Rumble watch party. They are going ooper duper fast, so you need to get in there now if you want to join us for the fun. But we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Nico and DAD. That has been the Professor Dan Layton. Jam that jam. Also go watch Gladiators.